All right, let's dive straight into this explainer. Today, we're mapping out the actual mechanics of the supernatural. Specifically, we're looking at claims of how our own very human flaws supposedly invite dark entities into our lives. We're going to break down an in-depth interview with a paranormal healer, and honestly, whether you're a hardcore skeptic or a true believer, the psychological and cultural framework behind these harrowing cases is absolutely fascinating. We have to start with this chilling quote from the source material. It's about a deceased grandfather begging for help, and it really sets the stage for the two terrifying cases we're going to look at. Just picture this for a second. Imagine being a young guy. You wake up in the middle of the night, you walk into your bathroom, and you find the spirit of your dead grandfather hiding there, absolutely terrified of an even darker entity roaming the house. I mean, it literally sounds like a scene straight out of a horror movie, right? But this was presented as a lived, terrifying reality. So to understand how a family even reaches that point of utter chaos, we need to look at the anatomy of a haunting. Case 1. The Shadow of America. Let's look at how a newlywed woman in Punjab became the target of a violently obsessive spirit. Let's track how unbelievably fast this fatal obsession escalated. So you have this guy, Amrik, a local traffic cop who develops a super dangerous infatuation with his cousin's new wife, Tanu. He starts stalking her, he openly defies the local village council, the panchayat, and he actually declares he's going to marry her, bringing massive disgrace to the family. And this all culminates in his own brothers violently killing him with bricks. But here's the crazy part. The healer claims that Amrik's final, dying thought was so fiercely focused on Tanu, his consciousness immediately anchored itself right to her. Well, the victim, Tanu, starts experiencing some truly terrifying manifestations. At first it's subtle, just a creepy feeling of being watched, some lights flickering, but it rapidly escalates. Suddenly, she's seeing a tall, looming figure dressed in old-fashioned linens, just standing right there in her dressing room behind the mirror. It got so intensely bad that her terrified family actually bricked up the wall where the mirror used to be, just desperately trying to block the entity's access. But the entity's wrath didn't just stop with the wife. It allegedly possessed her skeptical husband, controlling him in a sleepwalking state. See, Tanu's husband had constantly dismissed all her fears as just hallucinations. But, chillingly, locals later reported seeing him sleepwalking, talking back to an unseen voice, and just wandering out into a field. He poured pesticide into a glass and literally drank it like it was a casual beverage, leading to his tragic death. The healer attributes this incredibly unnatural act to direct, physical manipulation by Amrik's vengeful spirit. This next part is absolutely devastating. This occurred during Tanu's 7th month of pregnancy. She had this horrific dream where she was abducted and dragged into an operating room by a faceless doctor, but the doctor had Amrik's distinct hair. In the dream, he performed a violent phantom C-section. She woke up screaming in terror, and tragically, a real-life ultrasound the very next morning revealed her baby no longer had a heartbeat. The healer presents this as the ultimate malicious act of a spirit trying to claim her completely. Part 2. Why do souls wander? So what's the actual folklore framework here that allows a spirit to stick around and wreak such havoc? According to this belief system, souls get trapped by 5 core vices. When you take one of these vices and pair it with an untimely death and a kalmat, that obsessive final thought serves as an anchor to the living world. The healer makes a point of saying that spirits don't just wander around randomly, right? They're tethered by intense, unresolved emotions locked in at the exact moment of death. Amrik died a brutal, unnatural death, while his mind was entirely consumed by lust and ego. And that created a dense, negative energy that supposedly allowed him to manifest physically and cause very real harm. Now, what's super fascinating here is the stark contrast between the brute force ghost of Case 1 and the insidious, controlled black magic we're about to explore in Case 2. A lust entity like Amrik is chaotic. It's highly transferable. If the main target isn't available, that kind of energy can just attach to other young women in the household like wildfire. But Tantra, or Vashikaran, that is a totally different ballgame. It's not a wandering ghost acting on its own random desires. It's a weaponized curse directed by a living person to literally turn a victim into a remote-controlled puppet. Case 2. The Dark Web of Vashikaran. Let's dive into the completely baffling case of a wealthy, 58-year-old Delhi businessman whose entire life just inverted overnight. To really grasp this case, we have to understand what Vashikaran actually is. In folklore, it's a dark art meant to gain absolute, puppet-like control over someone's mind and actions. The healer walked into this upscale home and found just Absolute madness. You have this respectable father, zero history of drug abuse, suddenly violently cursing out his family and injecting massive doses of morphine-laced pregnancy medication just to get high. He had completely abandoned his super lucrative export business, and he was openly wishing for his own daughters' lives to be ruined. The family was reporting extreme supernatural chaos. We're talking everything from a dark entity standing by their flower pots to that terrifying vision of their ancestor hiding. And hey, that actually connects right back to the chilling quote from the beginning. The businessman's spiritually sensitive son kept seeing his deceased grandfather cowering in the bathroom, begging for help. The Vashikaran spell was reportedly so intensely potent that it flooded the house with an oppressive, dark entity that even overpowered the family's protective ancestral spirits. The businessman himself reported a terrifying pitch-black figure that followed him everywhere, even sitting in the backseat of his moving car. So what caused all this? Well, the healer uncovered a horrifying root cause. The businessman confessed in private that he had started an illicit affair with a female assistant at his factory. When he tried to break it off, she retaliated. She allegedly paid a practitioner of dark magic to place a binding Vashikaran curse on him, and the goal wasn't just to hurt his feelings, it was pure destruction. The aim was to strip him of his wealth, completely alienate his family, and turn him into a compliant, drug-addled shell of a man. Part 4, The Truth of Karma and Tantra. Let's pull back for a second and look at the overarching rules of this entire supernatural framework. The healer stresses a really vital concept here, which we can call the gateway rule. This destructive magic only worked because the man's infidelity provided an open gateway for the curse to enter his life in the first place. It brilliantly illustrates the folklore's perspective on karma. You can't just easily cast a devastating curse on some random, totally innocent person. The businessman invited this chaos in. By crossing that moral boundary and sharing intimate space with this woman, he essentially handed her the energetic keys to his life, allowing the dark magic to completely bypass his natural defenses. Now, for anyone out there fearing they might be manipulated by such energies, the healer provides a surprisingly simple remedy: rock salt. You don't need some complex, crazy expensive ritual to fight back. Simply take a pinch of rock salt while bathing, pray over the first mug of water, and throw that salt backward over your left shoulder. That simple act is said to break the psychic tethers of a Vashikaran spell. It's presented as a really straightforward, grounding tool to reclaim your own willpower and energy. Which brings us to the end of this explainer, and I want to leave you with a pretty provocative question. Are the monsters we fear actually invited in by our own flawed choices? Both of these case files suggest that whether it's ignoring early red flags from a dangerous stalker or stepping out on a marriage, human error acts as the ultimate catalyst. It really makes you wonder, doesn't it? Is the true horror found in the supernatural entities themselves, or in the very human mistakes that open the door for them in the first place? Keep questioning, keep learning, and definitely pay attention to the choices you make.